Hello, and welcome to the online scientific literature searching course, an introduction to advanced searching techniques. In this course, we'll talk about advanced searching techniques, combining meshing keywords, and building the final search. Something we have not talked about much in this class, but that is important to touch on, is the literature search workflow, beginning from a research question all the way through to documenting your search methods. Most of this class has focused on the portion from the research question through to conducting a search. I would like to point out that while this diagram shows it as a perfect circle, often you will have to go back and redo steps as your search changes. You'll notice here that you have refine and expand search strategy as one of the steps. You'll probably bounce back and forth between conducting a search and refining your search strategy a few times before you feel ready to move on and finish your research. Search techniques are ways of refining your search. The ones talked about here are specific to PubMed, although many of these search techniques can be used in different databases. Boolean operators in specific can be used in almost any database. There are three Boolean operators, or, and not. Or can be used to broaden a search. If you search premenopause or perimenopause, you will get all papers that talk about either of those subjects. And can be used to focus your search. Premenopause and estrogen will only return papers that talk about both of those topics. And not can be used to limit your search. Estrogen, not progestin, will only return papers that talk about estrogen and remove any papers that talk about progestin. However, this includes removing papers that talk about both estrogen and progestin. This is one of the reasons why the not operator is not recommended for use, especially in early searches when you're first building your search strategy. Truncation is used to find alternate endings or spellings of words. Here, the root word is premenopause. When we put the star on the end and search that in PubMed, we will retrieve papers that talk about premenopause as well as premenopausal. Be careful with how you use truncation though. It will add all endings on the word. It will add every ending to the word you are searching. For example, if you search pain with a truncation, you will get pain and painfully and painkillers. However, you will also retrieve paint and painting, which might mess up your search results. Nesting is the use of parentheses to contain search terms, combined with more than one Boolean operator in a search strategy. It can be used to simplify and shorten your search. For example, with nesting, we can search premenopause or perimenopause and estrogen. Without nesting, we would have to search premenopause and estrogen or perimenopause and estrogen. This is another thing to be careful with. By putting your parentheses in the wrong spot, you can end up confusing the database and end up with searches that don't make sense or that won't run at all. Phrase searching. This is a way to search an exact term. For example, gastric bypass. If you search that without quotation marks around it, it will search for each word separately. However, if you contain the phrase gastric bypass in quotation marks, it will search only for results that have those two words next to each other. It can be very helpful if you cannot find a mesh term for your concept. Not every concept will have a mesh term associated with it. It's also useful for compounded concepts like the gastric bypass example I just gave. Search limits are built-in tools in a database. I showed you some of these during the PubMed video. They can be used to narrow down your search results and can include such things as age, publication types, or coverage dates. Limits and filters are usually talked about interchangeably, but are different. Limits are provided by the database you're searching in. Filters have been built by professional searchers as a way to narrow down their search results and find only the articles they're looking for, and are not provided by the database you're working in, but found outside of it. Earlier in this class, we talked about finding key concepts using this question. Is bariatric surgery or referral to a nutritionist more effective at helping a diabetic patient lose weight? We identified these three key concepts: gastric bypass, nutritionists, and diabetic. We can take these concepts and turn each one into its own search. We could also have used the PICO method to identify our key concepts. You'll notice that our key concepts on the previous page match these exactly, but did not include weight loss. The outcome is not often included in the final search, unless you're having a hard time identifying papers that directly address the outcome you're looking for, or you're finding you have too many results and use the outcome as a way to further limit your search. Here are some key points when translating your concepts into a search. You need to identify the search terms for your concepts using additional synonyms and controlled vocabulary. This means using a mixture of mesh terms and keywords as talked about in the previous video. Familiarize yourself with the database you're using and the search techniques available there. We talked about the search techniques earlier in this video, and I gave you an overview of the database that we'll be using in a previous video. You can design a search strategy by combining search terms using Boolean operators and applying the techniques we talked about. Search strategies must be adapted for each database. The search we're designing for PubMed could not be copied and pasted into EBSCO Medline. Here is an example of what a full search would look like. We have the controlled vocabulary for each concept: diabetes mellitus, gastric bypass, and nutritionist. And then I went and found some free text terms, synonyms, or keywords that also work for each concept. Within each concept, the ideas are combined using the OR Boolean operator. This is because you want to build it out to find every paper you can for each concept. You will also combine the mesh term using OR. Later on, we'll combine each of the full searches for each concept using AND, as shown in this. Each concept in Pico is combined using OR, and then all of the concepts together are combined using AND. You'll see an example of this in the next video when I show you how to search this in PubMed. Thank you for your attention. Please feel free to use our Medical Library Services online guide to find information on future classes we're offering, or email us at support_med@ub.unib.ch.